creepy, and it is. It really is. But we were talking about this, and mine's in the room too, but I won't mention them. But Ben said, of anything I can do, can I please introduce Raphael Mudge? Everything we try to do, Ben goes, Raphael can do that. Raphael can do that. And he's not just saying it. This guy is going to blow you away. I am going to let Ben do the honors, so enjoy.
And if I can just add one thing, the person that I was going to say, Dave, you're forgetting somebody. Miguel, the banquet captain. Every time we needed help with anything, even when it wasn't something that they handled, it's like, Miguel can figure out who we need. So the Ameristar has been a great staff and a great place for us. That's, yeah, they've made a lot of this con very easy on us, so we're grateful. Coming to the stage, the last keynote of the day, the last keynote of ShowMeCon, Mr. Raphael Mudge. Raphael Mudge is the founder of Strategic Cyber LLC, a Washington, D.C.-based company that creates software for red teams. Raphael's work, Armitage, pioneered ideas to allow red teams to collaborate and scale their efforts. He also worked on red team automation through DARPA's Cyber Fast Track program. Besides Armitage, Raphael is the creator of the threat emulation software Cobalt Strike and the inventor of the grammar checker on WordPress.com. His work has appeared on the cover of the Linux Journal, the Fox sitcom Breaking In, and other publications. Raphael regularly speaks on security topics, provides red team support to many cyber defense exercises. His website is http://www, just to be old school, advancedpentest.com. And he is the #1 reference in all of my educational classes. So when people say, what did you learn? It's usually, I showed you where to look for even more better information. And Raphael released, I believe a few months ago, a set of videos on YouTube called Tradecraft that a lot of people have looked at. And if you haven't, and you do anything red team or pen testing or want to learn basics to some pretty advanced stuff, look up Tradecraft. In particular, the lateral movement within a network environment. I believe it's the 7th video. And that piece is a masterpiece. Raphael is definitely my man crush. He's working on setting up something with his laptop, and so I'm just going to keep gushing. Nope, he's going to move over here so that I don't. It's the way it should be done. Come on up. We got video. I'll give you a second to set up and say this. So please welcome to the stage, Raphael Mudge.
Yeah, let's see here. Okay, can everybody hear me okay? That was a very warm introduction, and I want to thank the Parameter Security folks for the wonderful hospitality. They have us staying at this hotel, and I've been blown away by the quality of the staff and the quality of the room and the facilities. And when I got to my room last night, I looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful. I'd be okay with some cardboard in an alley, but it's not so bad. So thank you guys for having me. And today, I'm going to give you my whole biography again. So now I'm going to do something I don't normally do. Okay? It's something I've only done a few times. And what that is I don't often get up and try to paint a here's how I see the future kind of speech. I'm not comfortable doing those because I'm not really a futurist. And I don't often get up and talk about ongoing research, something I'm working on that could very well fail. Okay? I'm not comfortable doing that either because it could fail. But Dave and Ben asked for something special here at ShowMeCon. And I was like, okay, I'm working on something. Pretty excited about it. I'll come talk about it here. And so I'm going to break those two rules, and you're going to see kind of rare form, at least what I see coming up. So we're going to talk about hacking to get caught, which is a concept for a kind of penetration testing that doesn't replace what's already there, but a new kind of service you might be able to offer called Adversary Replication. And it's going to be a bit different than what you think, I think. So we'll go through it. Let me give you an idea of like the problems that I've been working on the past couple of years and where I live and kind of my philosophy on it. So what I've been working on the past couple of years, and I'll give you the why, I will qualify this so I don't just sound like a guy spewing stuff, is I'm trying to close a tactical gap that I perceive between penetration testers, us, trusted advisors, the people who look at our organization's posture, and well-resourced so-called advanced threat actors. I'm trying to make it so our assessments can better look like what the bad guys are really doing. And I have a philosophy whenever I approach a problem like this. I tend to like to find a problem, say that's where I'm going to live, and I like to develop technologies. I'm a builder. But when I build a technology, I don't do it because I'm saying I've got a solution. I'm doing it because I want to explore the problem space and ask the questions. And so I try to fill in enough gaps to allow exploration of that problem space. So that's kind of my philosophy on research. And one place where you kind of seen me do this before was with Armitage, right? It's open source. To some folks, it's an open source front end to the Metasploit framework. And you fall into two camps. You either love it or you really dislike it, and that's okay. But I built Armitage not because I was like, ooh, let me write a UI. I built it because I wanted to explore red team collaboration. And not so much in the sense of a typical 2-week, 2-tester pen test, but I was doing a lot of exercises, I still do, and I was interested in ideas of how do I scale a team of 10, and now I've seen it up to 40 operators, 40 hackers. How do we scale a team like that and have some synergy, and not just a chaotic mess of people doing their own thing? And that's what I was working on with Armitage. And the thing I'm really proud of, nearly coming up almost 4 years later, or 3.5 now, is that I put these ideas out there not because I had a solution to the problem, but to convince people it was a problem worth looking at. And some of the things that have come out of that. Immunity, great company. They have their own model of collaboration called Strategic Canvas, and it's different than mine, and I think that's awesome. Core Security, their Core Impact product, has a collaboration model that's very similar to how Armitage set it up. And I think that's awesome too. You know, so it's like, hey, cool. It's really cool to see problem set introduced, people saying, yeah, that's kind of cool. I'd like that solved. Other people jumping on it and solving it. Yes, sir. You want me to stop talking?
Well, no. Can you 60 hertz? Oh, sorry. So we can catch demos when you do them. I'm sorry to interrupt you like that.
Absolutely, my friend. Don't worry, my friend. Okay, so what we're doing right now is we're just doing a slight AV change so the folks watching at home can take in our wonderful thing. Which resolution do you want, Adrian? 60 hertz? Okay. I'm going to have it, yeah, don't worry, I got that covered. Watch this. How's that? So I hope everybody, if you take anything from this talk, if you take anything from this talk, know that when you're getting your demos recorded, use 60 hertz as your refresh rate. And that, my friends, is my keynote. 60 hertz. No, anyways, now, Adrian, you're one of the best at doing this I've ever seen, so I appreciate you being here. Amen. Yeah, absolutely. Round of applause for Adrian. He's one of the most humble people I know, so he's probably like, why'd you do that, Raph? But we do love you, Adrian. So, in any case, where we were. I bring this up because this is a kind of a path of work I'm really comfortable with. I'm happy with the outcome. And I'm just pointing out that that idea of introducing a problem set, working in it, is good because it piques others' interest. And I want other people working on these problems. And so I'm really happy with what Immunity and Core have done. I really appreciate them helping continue to move things forward. So going on with that, of course, I did some work with automation through DARPA's Cyber Fast Track program. Again, I was trying to extend that collaboration model and include bots. And now, of course, I told you where I'm at, the problems that I'm working on is closing that gap. And I'm comfortable with where I'm at with that, too, with one exception. I see a twist that I could not have anticipated, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about just a couple of intrusion sets. I'm going to point you to a few resources to look at. So we're going to talk about what do I mean when I say well-resourced advanced threat actor? And what does that mean for doing an assessment that looks like them? And just so you don't think I'm up here just spewing ideas, I want to give you my path to arriving at this conclusion, like where I'm coming from. And then we're going to talk about a pen test, what a penetration tester does, the value a pen tester brings, versus a red team, versus another type of offensive professional or assessment, and that's an aggressor. And an aggressor is a professional that gives whoever they're exercising an opportunity to fight and test their capabilities against what's called a dissimilar adversary. Somebody who isn't you, who doesn't think like you, who doesn't have your weapons and capabilities. Okay, that's dissimilar adversary. And so we're going to talk about what an aggressor is, and we're going to go a little bit into military history and talk about the Vietnam War. And I gave this talk to a private DoD audience not long ago, and they've heard that story so many times, they nearly threw popcorn at me when I gave it. It's like, that again? Shut up. So, but this talk sparked in that audience like 45 minutes of discussion. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. So we'll talk about what an aggressor is. And I'm going to take you through what I think, what I see we need to do to go from a red team, okay, somebody's exercising security controls, to an aggressor. What would an aggressor platform look like? What would we need as offensive professionals? What would we need to go into our customers, the people who trust us, our clients, and actually provide the service where we act as that dissimilar adversary so our customers can know how they hold up against an imminent threat? And the tools to do that do not exist. I don't have them. Nobody does. And I'm going to give you what I think that looks like. Okay, so like I said, I'm giving you vaporware. But because this is ShowMeCon, I do have a demo. So hear me out. So let's start out with this. It's a great article from last year by Gunter Ullman from, I want to say, IOActive. I highly recommend you read it. And the article's called Penetration Testing with Honest-to-Goodness Malware. Okay? So Mr. Ullman makes this argument. He's like, hey, we go out and we do assessments, and we've been doing them the same way for a while. And we find problems. We find things across the board, all of our customers, and we help them get better. We help them fix those things. We are providing a valuable service. Don't doubt that. But Mr. Ullman expresses concern. He expresses concern. He's like, unfortunately, even despite our best effort to help our customers get better, and the fact we do find things, they're still getting owned, right? And so he asked the question, what can we, as the people charged with making our customers better, as we as the folks who provide the offensive mindset about what's possible, what can we do better to better serve them and help them deal with this so-called impossible threat of a well-resourced actor who wants you, who wants your intellectual property? Okay? He asks that question, and the answer he posts is he says, maybe it would help if we as offensive professionals got back to attacking our customers the way the attackers do. Let's give them what they're up against. And his solution for that is to take the adversary's malware and use it against our customers. You know, that's what he suggests. And before I kind of give you my response to that, let me take you through, what does he mean? So, one of my hobbies is I love reading these vendor reports. I feel like some of them, they redact a lot of details, so they're never the full picture. But I love reading these vendor reports on so-called nation-state level intrusion sets. Okay, so for example, I want to say it was a month and a half ago or so, Ouroboros, which is allegedly Russian, came out, and it was this remote access tool persistent agent that had been discovered on different systems and had been there for over 3 years. Okay? And I was going to embarrass somebody, but he deleted the tweet, thank God. Somebody who I was really surprised to see it posted something yesterday, said, post-exploitation is a solved problem. The O-Day is where it's at. And I say, if somebody's staying in your network for 3 years and nobody notices, the O-Day they used 3 years ago doesn't really matter 3 years later when you finally figure it out. And staying in a network for years doesn't just magically happen. There's a lot of work and sophistication that has to go into doing that. So Ouroboros, really interesting. It was a rootkit, did a lot of cool things, had a lot of different communication channels that we don't have as pen testers. For example, the ability to communicate over named pipes and things like that. Things that I find interesting. Another one most of us are familiar with that led to a firestorm of marketing, unfortunately, but still a great report, was Mandiant's report on the advanced persistent threat on APT1, where they kind of posted a bunch of indicators about what they say is China and their cyber espionage units and what they're doing. And of course, another one, Symantec, great report, Dooku. Again, something that they were finding on networks, something that had been there for years. A lot of capability in there, a lot of things that, again, just our tools don't do. And of course, Red October is another good one to look at. But I take you through that because these tools, these reports I bring up, they represent a different level of sophistication than anything any of us in this room have. Okay? They represent a different level of resources and funding and thinking about the problem. And so Mr. Ullman says, maybe one way to defend against that is to use those tools against their customer. Well, the problem is, two of them, is I don't have the command and control system, the front end, and the tool chain for Red October or Dooku or any of those. I just don't have them. I don't know if you do. If you do, please share. But I don't think any of us do. Like, none of us have the tools to actually use that thing. And then, even if I did have it, hacking platforms are not all the same. There's a training cost. People need to know how to use it. There's certain things that are universal. You need to know to hack. But it's like flying aircraft. Now, I'm an Air Force veteran, so I use aircraft analogies a lot. It's like flying aircraft in the sense, you're not going to go from a Cessna to like to a jumbo jet and be just as effective, right? And if anybody's got a private pilot license, says, yeah, of course you could. I don't know. But I'll use that analogy and pretend it sticks. So here is the problem. How do we pen test with honest-to-goodness malware? How do we make our activities look like what our customers are up against? And before I kind of go through that mental journey, I want to give you my background so you don't just think I'm up here like with the typical APT rah-rah marketing hat on. Buy our appliance, detects 100% APT. So let me just kind of give you where I'm coming from. March 2008, I left active duty. Okay, so I was active duty Air Force. My last assignment, I worked as a researcher in the cyber operations area branch, and I used to work in a NOC before that for the Air Force. And I've been living with this idea my whole career of nation-state actors wanting to spy on us and having resources and hacking in a sophisticated way. Like, to me, that's a fundamental assumption. It always has been. And I find it funny now that I go and engage in the community, and And a lot of people are like, no, that's just marketing hype. It's not. It really is not. And I'm not the person to present the evidence to you for that, but that's an operating assumption I have. So, but my background, think of it like this. I'm a researcher, I'm a developer, okay? That's what I do. I build and look at problems. So to kind of give you my history in this community, March 2008, the Air Force, my last week in active duty, they sent me to something called the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. I write about it a lot, I talk about it a lot. They put me on this red team, and I said, why are you sending me to this red team? I don't know how to hack, I know how to develop. And they're like, well, you're one of our more technical people. We think you'd be a good representative. I'm like, okay. So I go do this event in the Northeast region, and I'm hacking with these guys, except I can't hack, so I'm not hacking. I'm a pretty weak member of the team, honestly. And 2009, they invited me back, and same thing, pretty weak member of the team. In 2010, same thing. They invite me back, and I'm a pretty weak member of the team. I want to lay this out for you so you don't think that I'm like coming to you with like the holy water and the robes and the staff saying, I know everything about security. I don't. This is my story. No, when I left the Air Force, even though I kept getting invited back to do this red teaming each year, when I left the Air Force, I decided to solve another problem. And that was people's poor writing. So I developed a spelling and grammar checker, of all things. I learned natural language processing. I do what I do with any problem. I go read the best papers. I figure out the state of the art, try to say, what can I do? How can I apply this? And so if anybody here has ever used WordPress, a blog on WordPress.com, and you click that little green button, that's a little A with a check mark next to it, you were using my software. So I am a grammarian-ish. And if you ever wonder how I survive in this community with a thick skin, you have never incurred wrath until you have provoked the grammar national socialists of the world. Okay? There is nothing you can do to troll anybody more than say, I've got a technology that can help people solve a problem that they lay their life on correcting people and making them feel bad. So that was my detour. I was doing this work, I really enjoyed it, but I got depressed. I got depressed because, well, frankly, I was getting trolled a lot. trolled a lot. And I was like, I need to go do something else. So I almost quit development. I interviewed for a lot of sales engineer jobs. Okay? I'm going to become a sales engineer. And I found this ad on LinkedIn, I guess they work, for a long-term, full-scope red team assessment. A defense contractor is in charge of doing that. 3 blocks from my apartment. And I live in DC. I won't drive. I just got rid of my car, actually. And so I was like, oh, okay. Long-term full-scope assessment. That sounds fun. I'll go do that. I've never been a consultant before, but sure, why not? And so I begged my way into the team. I said, I'm not a hacker, but I'll write tools for you. And I got there, and, well, there wasn't the team I promised, and so I had a lot of learning to do to actually exercise the security controls and challenge my customer properly. And 2 of the things that really helped ground my tradecraft, that shaped my thinking, keep in mind, I'm coming into this as an outsider with a military background, saying, how do I be the bad guy? So the 2 things that shaped me the most were Attack Research's classic Metafish paper. If you haven't read it, I recommend going to read it. And H.D. Moore and Val Smith's Tactical Exploitation paper. These are, in my opinion, still, these papers are old. They are some of the best public write-ups on hacker tradecraft out there. So these shaped my thinking. But when I was doing this work, when I was doing this full scope assessment against a hard target, I noticed a lot of tactical gaps, okay? And me, I try to be a detail-oriented person and say, what can go wrong? I care about everything about how what I use works. And so one of the things, of course, is one of the tactical gaps is a lot of attacks, like say in the Metasploit framework, they're all caught by antivirus, right? A new Internet Explorer exploit ends up in there. It's kind of cool. But the next day, every AV vendor on the planet is going to have signatures for it. The other thing that really hurt me going against a hard target is that there were very few options even back then it was worse. This is what we got now. There were very few options to egress out of that network, to actually get out past all their static defenses, get out past their lockdown firewall, to walk through their proxy. Back when I was doing this, it was PassiveX, which was a version of Interpreter that loaded an ActiveX plugin into like Internet Explorer 5. And that's not what my customer had. And so that was like my option to get out like HTTP, and so it wasn't an option. So I was really kind of stuck with my tools. And I loved Interpreter, amazing piece of software. I mean, how many other hacking tools do we have that have lasted us over 10 years, or nearly 10 years? You know, that's a very long-term technology. But some of the problems I ran into is that, unlike a real threat, it only communicates with one endpoint. You know, it's always chatting with me, the attacker. And it requires an active channel. If you're not talking to it, it dies, it goes away. Another problem I ran into is when you deliver an attack and it downloads itself to inject itself into memory, the staging process, until April 2013, that was not obfuscated. A lot of products on the market that were detecting advanced persistent threat, their secret sauce was to look for a PE header going over the wire and say, hey, look, that's an intrusion. So that was fixed in Metasploit in April 2013. So that particular piece, but there's tactical gaps. There's things our tools do not do, problems our tools do not address for going against a hard target. And so you know, I developed software like it was introduced in my bio to address that, and that's what I do with Cobalt Strike. And I just focused on a lot of those problems for getting around the different defenses. A particular interest area of mine, you'll see it in a moment, is communication. I think that's one of the biggest tactical gaps, and where we are the most behind the advanced threat actors is we have buckets for covert comms. And so I've been working on that. And I feel pretty good. I've had a product on the market 2 years, and a lot of the people who've found my business, have found me because of my focus on covert comms. So that's where I'm at now, and I'm serving the needs of what I would call red teams. And so let me give you my definition of what a pen tester is, what a red team is, and what I see coming next, which is that aggressor. I walked too far to change my slides. Let me come back over here. I'll keep that in mind next time. So let's talk about these roles, what these folks do. A penetration tester. There are a lot of competing definitions. I'm going to give I throw my hands up and I give up and say that a penetration tester is somebody who comes in and exploits security holes inside your network, maybe whitelisted. There's not really an attempt to be covert about it. They're looking for problems and advising their customer on them. A red team, what differentiates a red team from a penetration tester is their role is to simulate an attack. Maybe the whole process or maybe pieces of it. And to contrast this with what's coming next, an aggressor, that person who's replicating that threat, is somebody who, well, I just said it. They're replicating a threat. Instead of just simulating a generic attack, they're trying to create an attack that looks like something that might happen. That's an aggressor. Why do we do this? Different reasons. Penetration testers. Let me touch everything. Let me find the problems. Let me report them to you so you can fix them. A red team, they're doing it to exercise your security controls, your process, and see how they hold up to that attack that they're doing. An aggressor differs from these three, and this is new, right? In that I see an aggressor as somebody who exercises how well the intelligence you have or pay for supports your computer network defense. And hear me out on this, because this is very niche. And so, let's say I'm a bank, and I know I've got a big target on my back. Well, I'm going to go to these different threat intelligence companies, right? Like I'm going to go to like a CrowdStrike or a Mandiant or a number of other folks who provide a good service because they do a lot of research on what the real actors are doing, right? And I've got all this information. How do I know if that information is being acted on? If it's actually benefiting my network defense? How do I know that that information I'm paying a lot of money for is preparing me to fight off what I'm most afraid of? That's a question. And I've met, in terms of like going out and talking to a lot of people, I've met people from teams that do what they call advanced pen testing, where their job is to replicate a threat. And right now, a lot of them are just rebranded red teams. Like, yeah, we're just doing red team stuff, and we call it adversary replication. You know, let's say the country of Ohio. I'm not going to pick on any country, so I'll pick on the state of Ohio. I'm from Michigan. So Ohio, they have an intelligence capability, and they're going out and conducting espionage, right, through cyberspace. And so Ohio, they like to send phishing emails to get in. Well, I'm an advanced pen testing team. I'm going to replicate that. So I'll just whip out a phishing tool and call it good. I replicate what they do. Is that good enough? I don't think so. And we'll go into that. So these are these three roles. And why an aggressor? You want an aggressor who's going to replicate that threat because they're going to give your staff the experience fighting that dissimilar adversary. How many of you have seen the movie Top Gun? Most of you. Now, which service was that about? Maybe. Good. Somebody said Air Force. Air Force guys would hate you. Isn't that funny? Like one of the best like fighter pilot movies is about the Navy. I was a comm guy, so I'm like, I always kind of get a laugh about that. But yeah, Top Gun, what it was a school, a Navy school, where fighter pilots would go and get an experience fighting against a dissimilar adversary. Fighter weapons school. I know like the Air Force version, it's red flag, so again, that's where I come from. But let's give you a little bit of history. During World War II, our air power was awesome. We were shooting down a lot of enemy planes, and well, except our bombers, but our tactical air power during World War II and during Korean War was pretty good. Vietnam, not so good. During the Vietnam War, for every enemy aircraft we shot down, or every 2.2 aircraft we shot down, we lost one. And that's a pretty big cost in terms of wealth and our greatest treasure, which is our people. And this statistic really caused the military to take pause and look at itself. And so a study was commissioned called Project Red Baron 2. And what they did is they interviewed a lot of folks who fought in Vietnam. And they found out that if a pilot had survived 10 combat sorties, then their chance of survival was greatly increased over the folks who hadn't seen action that many times. So when you were fresh, you were in great danger of getting shot down. And this led to the U.S. Air Force establishing an exercise called Red Flag. And one of the purposes of Red Flag was to give pilots experience fighting against a dissimilar adversary to get them to fly those first 10 combat missions before they saw real action. Okay? And that dissimilar piece is very important because if you're just going against an American pilot fighting like an American, and you come out and you encounter somebody flying a MiG, and they do it differently, you might not have that muscle memory, might not know how to react. And that might cost you your life. And it's pretty serious stuff. And not to knock on the Air Force, because I really love the Air Force, but the Navy came to the same conclusion that this was a good approach, and they established Top Gun for the same reasons, and they did so in 1969, which is kind of funny. So, but this idea that if you're going to fight against a well-funded actor, people with a peer actor with the similar resources or more than what you have, you need to actually go against them, their tactics, their ideas. You need to develop a plan and experience fighting against them, not just fighting some sort of sparring against yourself. So how did we do aggressors? How did we select aggressors in the Air Force? So aggressors typically came from top pilots, and they're trained to use an enemy's what we call tactics, techniques, and procedures. And my understanding is the way that that process worked is they would be assigned, a pilot would be assigned an intel analyst who would help mentor them through that process. They would study everything. And before they would be allowed to fly a mission as an aggressor, they had to go before a board of their peers and actually prove they had those TTPs, that thinking of that adversary down cold. Okay? But something really interesting about aggressors is they flew American aircraft. You don't take an F-15 pilot and say, hey, F-15 pilot, hop into this other thing you don't know and relearn how to fly on this other platform. Instead, let's give you something similar. Let's give you something with a similar profile, something that's like what our guys are going to go against, but let's make it look like the adversary as much as possible. Okay? So, let's translate that to cyber ops, cyberspace. Again, that's the military background of me coming out. What is a cyber aggressor? What is an aggressor? Somebody who's providing that experience of a dissimilar adversary. Well, ideally, it should be somebody selected from your top skilled people at providing these kinds of services. Good. These top people should be trained to understand the TTPs, the tactics, techniques, and procedures of who they're trying to replicate. And in the public space, of course, I pointed you to some of those vendor reports, but this idea of TTPs, this idea of past behavior, past things that have worked, that's part of what you pay for when you pay for threat intelligence, or if you have an organic intelligence collection capability as well. But more importantly, a cyber aggressor, I'm a builder of things, should have a platform, not saying the enemy's platform, but they should have a platform with capabilities similar to what that adversary can do. So what would that platform look like? Well, I think it should be a standard platform. If you have people who know Metasploit really well, then I think it would be okay to make Metasploit the foundation of that aggressor platform. So there's not a big retraining cost or loss of efficiency when somebody transfers to it. I think the cyber aggressor platform has to do the job of getting past static defenses. The same things red teams have to deal with. More importantly, it should be extensible for mission needs. And the fourth thing, because the above are red team problems, the fourth thing, this is what would make a red teaming tool into an aggressor platform, is I think it should have customizable indicators. I think if you're going to do threat replication and exercise how well the intelligence you pay for, benefits computer network defense, I think the way to do it is for a team of aggressors to take that same intelligence report, that same information the defense team's getting, and make their tools look like that. So when you come in, you're not looking like a guy using Meterpreter and Metasploit. You come in and you're looking like somebody who is this actor from Ohio's intelligence agency. And of course, I'm just picking on Ohio. But that is the missing piece. That's what I see. And what do I mean by customizable indicators? Well, on disk. Different adversaries persist in different ways. They have favored ways to do it. Those are the things that get published in these reports on like, hey, here's the things to go look for. So something you can do. If your tools generate artifacts like executables and DLLs, why not start adding some static strings to it that match some of those indicators in the intel, so when somebody finds that artifact and they go do their analysis, they've got something to tie back to the adversary that they're trying to look out for. And of course, that team, they should be knowing how and where that adversary likes to drop persistence so they can replicate that. Give folks experience defending against this. The other one, this is what I think is really interesting. This is the one that is harder to do. On the network, the aggressor should be using the same command and control protocols that the adversary they're replicating would use. But more importantly, that C2 that they're using, that all their tools are depending on, should look like that adversary's with as much fidelity as possible. Then you can give folks a pretty realistic assessment if you try to mirror what their actions might look like. So one of the things, I'll kind of give you like my path on this. I wrote a payload, I call it Beacon, and it's not really a beacon anymore. It used to just do a heartbeat call out and connect to you and download its tasks. But I recently, 6 months ago, added the ability to tunnel stuff through it. And Beacon is what I wrote that gives me access to a bunch of different communication protocols. And I'm working on trying, this is my research right now, and like I said, speculative research, not something I have, but it's an idea, is what if I could make this communication layer look like any adversary's tools? And if I have the ability to tunnel Metasploit and Meterpreter through it, then I can use all the tools I know. I can use all the tools I know, but I can look like somebody else. And I think that's a pretty interesting concept. So how do I envision this? What would that look like? Well, I can imagine, and ignore, I could start up my C2 server with a profile that looks like that actor, okay? And my tools should ideally ingest that profile. The agent, the rat, should take on that profile, and the C2 server should take on that profile and use it to communicate, use it to customize their indicators. So this is what I envisioned. If I had a way to define a profile, a communication profile, how to change those indicators, could do some interesting things. So let's talk about that. And I'm going to use this one because it's a simple example. How many of you remember Comment Crew? Comment Crew? What? A few of you. So Comment Crew was allegedly China, but Comment Crew was a set of actors doing intrusions, stealing intellectual property, and they got the nickname Comment Crew because their command and control traffic consisted of an agent connecting to a web server, and the agent, or excuse me, the web server would give back command and control tasks as a base 64 string wrapped in a comment. And it would say, hey, 404 error, file not found. That was their C2. So if somebody were to see this and they had an intel report on, hey, beware of this actor, then this would be a dead-on indicator that that's them. So one of the things, that's one of my kind of test cases, and this is a very simple one, was can I make my C2 look like Comment Crew? And because this is ShowMeCon, not Talk to Me Con, curse you, I was up till about, I don't know, 3 a.m. last night, reconstituting a prototype around this concept. So instead of Talk to Me Con, I could show you. So let me do that and do the show me part. And again, this is just research I'm doing into this concept. So it's something that's a little bit of ways off. But what I want you to see is that, let me restart this. I have Wireshark running right here, so you can see what traffic looks like. And I'm running this tool I call ShowMeCon Demo. There it is, see? Written especially for ShowMeCon. You like that? That's right. Rebranded, white labeling. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick off an agent here, because like I said, this is the communication piece I'm interested in. And let me kick that agent off, and you can see I get a beacon back. And this agent's going to keep checking in. Let me come here and interact. And let me just task it to do something like run a command. And this one's checking in every 10 seconds. That's what I've got the profile set to. And I give it a command, and when it checks in, it runs it. Okay? That check-in time could be hours, days, or in this case, 10 seconds. Okay? Let me show you the traffic. It's downloading evil.bin. Okay? And it's downloading evil.bin. It's doing that every 10 seconds. And here's kind of what that C2 looks like. In this case, there was actually nothing there. But let me come up just above this post here. Yeah, evil.bin. And we see like the actual payload of what it's supposed to do is just a bunch of random binary garbage. Okay? That's the C2 right now. Now, one of the things, when somebody looks at this, they're going to say, oh, I see that. I'm going to defeat that by writing signatures, right? And I know that because a lot of people know the tools I write and use. And when I go do exercises, they purposefully look at my software to come up with indicators to stop me. So let me turn that on its head. So you convinced this is the C2 protocol currently going on? And it works? Okay. Let's see if I can change that profile to make it look like another actor. So I'm going to go ahead and kill this. And we've got to wait for it to check in to take that tasking. And there we go. Came home. It's going to be dead. And let me warn you, this is a research prototype. This is as prototypey as I get. So anything can happen. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a communication profile. And what I'm doing, my approach, I'm a language designer. I'm writing a domain-specific language to define comms. And this is not a Turing-complete language, but the idea is the language can be interpreted one way to build up a message and customize a transaction, and it can be interpreted backwards to extract data out. Okay? That's my approach. And I went to the DoD and tried to get it funded, and it didn't happen, so I work on it anyways because it's a lot of fun. So here's what I've got. Let me change some things up. I can change like the user agent and other kind of static things. But let me change the actual kind of output of this thing to look like comment crew. So what we're going to do is content type, and we're going to make that, I think it's content type text plain text. It's what the server is going to spit out. And we'll make it grab, I don't know, what's a good URI? ShowMeCon. Okay, ShowMeCon.text. Is that good? Good. So we're going to make it grab ShowMeCon.text, and let's define what this transaction should look like. First off, let's base64 code the C2 traffic, so that's a statement to do that. And let's prepend to it. And let's prepend an HTML comment start. And let's append the end of an HTML comment in the text 404. Okay? And let's make sure I didn't make a typo. I tend to do that. And like I said, this is very prototypey, so anything can happen. Attention. Okay, so that's good enough. So let's go with that profile. Just trying to make this look like comment crew, so we can be an aggressor. So let me go ahead and start this thing up. If you've ever used my tools before, Armitage or anything else, you know this part takes a while. This is a good time to get to know your children. Think about loved ones who influenced you, mentors. It's all good things to do. And here we are back in my tool, ShowMeCon demo. You like that white labeling? Yeah? Take care of you. Take care of you. And let's go to our beacons, and there's no beacon right now. And I don't know if you're nervous. I certainly am, because like I said, this is a big-time prototype. But let me go ahead and kick off the agent. That's a good sign. And let me just go make sure that it's working. And you can see, here it is, checking a 10-second interval and doing its thing. And let me just do something kind of cooler. Let me type interpreter and press enter. And what that's going to do is speed up my communication and give me a interpreter session tunneled through this rat. Why is that important? Interpreter is a complex beast. It would take a lot of work to retrofit this kind of communication capability into interpreter. But if I've got a layer that interpreter can ride over, then I can get all that for free and still have the functionality in interpreter that I've grown to love. And in case that's not obvious, let me just show you here. There's my interpreter session. And let me just go pop a shell real quick. Let me do a net stat just so you can see what's kind of going on. And here's this box talking to the domain controller, so ignore that. That's normal. But this is actually, this traffic here, loop back to loop back, is interpreter being tunneled through that rat. Well, otherwise, because it's an asynchronous agent checking in this case, multiple times a second, it's not showing up in a net stat right now. I just got lucky. But here I have a interpreter session, and you notice I can use interpreter. Meterpreter, okay? And I take screenshots and do all the different things I do. But let's come over here. You can see, what's the rat doing? Well, it's doing a get, ShowMeCon, right? And what's that response? And let me stop the traffic capture real quick, just so I'm not dealing with the scrolling here. But what's the reply look like, especially when there is stuff? Well, you can see in this case there's nothing for it to get, so it's a 404 and an empty comment. Let's come up, because I know there's something, like I'm looking for anywhere there's a post, because before that there's going to be actual data. Let's see here. Okay, HP 101, okay. So I want you to see this. I want you to see that base 64 encoded command and control data. For all that traffic that's going on, there's something. Don't lie to me. Okay, that's old stuff. We don't care about evil.bin, right? Here we go. That's good. But here you go. This is line-based text data, or let's see here. This is in the reply. And there you go. You can see that HTML comment with that base 64 encoded stuff, just like Comment Crew. Okay? That's a prototype of what an aggressor platform might look like. But all the things we're talking about in this vision, this idea of using our existing tools, our existing platform, our existing capabilities, the ability through training to restrict ourselves, to look like that actor, to do what that actor would do, but now customizable indicators so we can be that. I've never seen a tool do this before. As a developer, I mean, it scares the living daylights out of me, because obviously we're doing this in the sense of replicating the existing actor. What does this do for signature-based detection? Nullifies it. So when you're out there, never mind, I won't make vendor jokes. But yeah, what we just did to replicate Comment Crew, we restricted ourselves to an HTTP data channel, and we loaded a profile that base 64 encoded our C2 traffic, and wrapped it in HTML comment, and had that other static indicator, that 404 piece, and we tunneled our tools, like Meterpreter, through it. How does this change the game? What does this do? What does this mean for us? Well, let's say you're a red team exercising security controls. Here are the kinds of questions you're going to go in, and what your assessment is going to help, these reflective questions, what's going to help your customer look at what happened and get better. And the kinds of questions a red team can help a customer ask about their process and see how well they do is, hey, blue team, what did you see? What happened? What did we take? What did we take from you? What did we exfil? Which systems are we, the red team, on? Which accounts are compromised? Where's our command and control stuff? Where's our command and control infrastructure? These are questions a red team assessment can help raise for a customer, right? And this is stuff that some of you do. This is your job. But if you're an aggressor, the kinds of questions you can help a blue team ask after an engagement change drastically. More questions. It becomes possible to better analyze your process. You can start to ask them, okay, you just got done with an assessment. Who attacked you? Okay. What do they want? Go back to not just what we did, but go back to the threat reporting, the threat intel, and say, what does the adversary want? Where might they go next? Because you can use that intelligence of what they want based on what you saw in one spot, and if you know what they're after, you can watch it closer, right? This is exercising that process and getting better. So what will they go after next? Which indicators did you see that made you think it was this actor? Which indicators, if you unraveled one piece of the puzzle, what are the new things you saw? So you can add that and report that back and make the intel better. Okay? Because there's always a two-way communication between the folks on the front lines and the folks back trying to unravel this big puzzle. What are other things we should be looking at? If you've got an aggressor replicating an adversary, what they can get out of an engagement, what your teams can get out of an engagement to get better. It opens up a lot of new territory. And that's pretty exciting because these are the kinds of questions we need to ask to get ahead of a well-resourced nation-state threat. And that's why I call this presentation Hacking to Get Caught. This changes things up a little bit. A lot of red teams, their goal is to not get caught. And some of the objections I've heard to this concept is, well, once we get caught, the engagement's over. And I go back and say, well, maybe that shouldn't be the case. Maybe it should be the case. When you catch a real actor in your network, you don't necessarily close them out right away. You bring in some experts, you look at the problem, and you watch for a little while to see what other information you can get about how they operate so you can detect them in other places in your network and even maybe in other people's networks. So I think hacking to get caught is an interesting idea because there's a lot of new ground to cover, a lot of new value. We, those of us who are offensive professionals, can bring our customers. So in summary, I took you through this idea, this argument from Mr. Ullman at IOActive, that we should be pen testing with honest-to-goodness malware. We should get back to simulating that adversary so our customers can get better at what they're up against. And I gave you some of the practical limitations to that were good. And just so you know, I am just me. I'm a developer. I gave you my background, just so you know, I'm just a guy looking at A, B, C, and I think D comes after that. So I just wanted to give you my story, just so you could see where I was coming from, so I don't sound like, a total crackpot. And we talked about what a pen test is, a red team assessment, and then what this other kind of niche that I suspect we'll see more of in the coming years, of an aggressor. And we talked about the military history behind how we train to stop and fight and win against a dissimilar adversary. Not us beating up on ourselves the same way each time, but training to fight against the actual adversaries who are out to get us. And I took you through some ideas I had to socialize them, get them out there, get you talking about them, thinking about them, maybe even improving on them, of how to go from a red team, which is something a lot of organizations do well now, to an aggressor. Okay? So with that, I'll be in the back if there's any questions, because I think I'm about out of time. But my name's Raphael Mudge. That's my email, my Twitter. Learn more about what I do at that website. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm a hug kind of guy.
There, now I've got my back. Thank you, Raphael. Greatly appreciate it. When Raphael sent us in his, I think I'm going to talk about this, I was like, oh my, this is new, this is great, and then he went above and beyond. So, before we dismiss for lunch will be downstairs again in the Amerisports Bar. We've got a redo on the level 3 giveaway. This was for the speakers of some kind. Beats Audio, yeah, there we go. Brad Jones decided that his education con was more important, and I'm going to give him hell for that for a while. We're friends, so I can do that. So instead of Brad, we need to give this to Scott Swoboda. I probably pronounced that all kinds of wrong. Scott, go to